Welcome back to ESBR Boxing. Delighted to be joined by Danny again for the second time this evening. This is a review show for the Chris Billam-Smith fight that has ended, just ended for us. And we'll be touching on Dan Aziz versus Rocky Fielding as well. Danny, good fight, not the best night is how I would describe it in kind of a nutshell. Fifth round stoppage for Chris Billam-Smith. Give me your general thoughts on the fight.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think the card sort of needed that finish or something of similar like quality or drama or whatever way you want to phrase it, because it was a bit of an underwhelming night, a strange night up until that point. In terms of the fight itself, I think there's sort of no other place to start than the knockout. It was as I put on Twitter, I genuinely think it's the best knockout I've seen this year, certainly in Britain. I know our Welsh friend Dowie will probably not thank me for saying that with his love for Cordina, but like the way he just completely folded. I was chatting to one of my mates about it. He said it sort of reminded him a bit of the Canelo knockout at Cannes, and it was sort of quite similar to that, the way he just slumped over. Up until that point, though, I think it's sort of important to look at the whole fight when you're sort of evaluating, because obviously we all expect Billam-Smith to challenge for a world title in the not too distant future. I think there sort of were a few concerning, more than a few, like the way Xhoxjaj, still haven't got that pronunciation, hurt him, and it looked to me like that briefly I sort of thought, oh, could this be a stoppage, because his legs really did seem to go. In fairness to Billam-Smith, he recovered quite quickly from that, and obviously managed to wear him down, as you saw. But I think they'll still obviously push on for the world title shot next year. I think there's probably too many cogs in motion for that to stop, but I think it could be a big ask, especially if they do get the Opetaya fight, which seems to be the route they're going down.
Yeah, that's moving on quickly. Do you think Chris Billam-Smith will win? Do you think we'll be here in 6 months' time and Chris Billam-Smith will be a world champion?
I don't. I think it's just purely because Opetaya is the champion they seem to be targeting, and I know he's had that really bad jaw break, and if he doesn't have a fight before Billam-Smith, it'll be probably the best part, if not over a year, he's been out of the ring. But I just think he's too easy to hit, Billam-Smith, and whilst Opetaya doesn't seem to be a massive puncher, he hurt Bradis a couple of times in their fight, and I think it's not unfair to say he looks to be quite a bit more skilled than Billam-Smith, a lot better feet, a better jab. If he targeted one of the other world champions like a Makabu, I think that's a much more winnable fight. Gulamarian, even though he had a really good win over Egorov, or how you pronounce it, earlier this month or last month, that would again be a better fight. But as I say, this Opetaya fight seems to be the most likely, and I just think that's a very tough fight for him.
Yeah, I just want to make it clear, we're not trying to rain on anyone's parade here. We're just kind of being honest. Chris Billam-Smith is former British champion. I don't know if he's the current Commonwealth champion, but he has won the Commonwealth title. He's won the European title as well. Got Shane McGuigan as his trainer. Has only lost one fight, which was a very close fight to Richard Riakporhe. He's got a great fan base in Bournemouth. It's nice to have seen him have had 2 fights in Bournemouth now, after all those fights kind of in London and other places as well. It's just, I agree with you. I just think it's a very big ask. I think he's a European level fighter and has the potential to be a top 10, I would say a top 10 cruiserweight, but it's not like, it's not easy to become a world champion. It's not.
100%.
I agree that Jay Opetaya is the most likely champion he's going to face. If he were to fight Ilunga Makabu, would you favour Billam-Smith in that fight, or would you lean towards Makabu? That's another. Makabu's the WBC champion, as we know, came over and fought Tony Bellew quite a long time ago now. Yeah, what are your thoughts on that one?
No, I think I would favour Billam-Smith against Makabu. Like, just on what you said, I would love to see Billam-Smith become a world champion next year. I think he's really like an example of just graft and sort of maximising whatever ability you do have. And as you said, he's building a real nice following at Bournemouth, and we were both down in Bournemouth when he fought over the summer, and the atmosphere for that Chamberlain fight was unreal. And he's always in good fights, and as he's definitely capable of becoming a world level fighter. And in terms of the Maccabi fight, I just think his physicality would be too much to Maccabi, and I'm not sure what age he is, but as you said, that Bellew fight was a long time ago. He got flattened then. The last time I watched him was he fought that Mchunu, and he lost that fight, and we got the decision, but it was sort of, the consensus was that he lost, and I think he's probably the weakest champion out of the four current ones at cruiserweight. But I think the sort of impression is that they're targeting him for Reactpor, and Sky have obviously seemed to put a lot of emphasis in the cruiserweight division. They're clearly very keen on signing Lawrence Okoli. So, as I say, it would be so good. It would be great for British boxing if you could have like 3 of the 4 champions being British and potentially all under the same promotional banner, and you could all fight each other, and you'd have a potential pay-per-view star at the end of that. As I say, as you sort of said, sorry, we're not here raining anyone's parade. It's just an honest opinion that with the route they're taking, I don't see it happening, certainly in 6 months.
Yeah, kind of like defeating the object of what we've just discussed about. I'm one of these fans. I'm not hugely fussed about belts. I think they're a bit overrated, and I don't think they mean as much as they used to. A fight I would love to see next summer, and a fight like I feel like could be made, is that Billam-Smith Reactpor rematch. Very close fight. It was a long time ago. They're both improved as fighters now. I wouldn't mind seeing that next instead of a world title fight for Billam-Smith. You could possibly have that fight in Bournemouth again. Would be a big one. Going to put you on the spot again, Danny. Billam-Smith Reactpor, the rematch. Who would you favour? It's a tough one, I think.
It is a tricky one, and feels like I've not seen Reactpor for a long time now. I'm not sure how exactly long it's been since he's fought. From the eye test, I know Reactpor's got that almost freakish power, but you would say Billam-Smith's probably the fighter who seems to have visibly improved the most since their first fight. And remember, the first one wasn't a particularly great one to watch, if I remember right. And I think a second fight would probably take similar shape. So I don't know. It's not a fight I was thinking about, actually, but I would give Billam-Smith a lot more of a chance in that one. Because he's I know he was slightly wobbled tonight, but he seems to be a very good chin. He's very durable. He would probably have the edge in that aspect over Reactpor, which gives you a chance in any fight if you can sort of last the distance at a greater pace. But gun to my head, I think Reactpor might just be a bit too awkward for him again, a bit too long, and sort of spoil him when he gets inside and maybe win the fight behind the jab.
Interesting. I'm going to disagree with you and go for Billam-Smith in the rematch. But yeah, I just hope we see. I'd like to see that rematch. Final thing I would say on like Billam-Smith is that I think if there's the opportunity to fight at the Vitality Stadium in front of thousands of fans, obviously in Bournemouth, he's 32 years old. You can't kind of blame him for going after that now. So I do think we are going to see it next year, and it should be a good occasion. Stadium fights, albeit Bournemouth, it's not Wembley Stadium, is it? But it should be a good event. It really should. These sort of fights don't happen every so often, so I really hope it does happen for Chris Billam-Smith. We're going to move on and quickly touch on the co-main event of the night now. Dan Aziz, Rocky Fielding, 8th round stoppage for Dan Aziz, who remains undefeated, moves to 18-0. I thought it was a bit sad if you consider Rocky Fielding was a world champion. I know he kind of got done in by Canelo, but he was on that massive stage against Canelo a few years ago now. And Dan Aziz, who I think is a great fighter, by the way, but I thought Dan Aziz won every round, and then the towel comes in at the 8th. At no point this week did I think Rocky Fielding was going to win. Missed weight yesterday, and just looked a bit old and done. But I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. I'm just kind of being honest. What were your thoughts, Danny?
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think there were a lot of question marks coming into the fight over how much ambition was left for Rocky Fielding. And it's that old like cliche, isn't it? Once you're waking up in silk pajamas, it gets hard to do the road running, and you can't begrudge him maybe the fire in the belly not being quite what it was, having earned what I'm sure was a huge amount of money for fighting Canelo, and had other big fights obviously as well. But as I say, you're completely right. It was just a case of you've got a hungry fighter in Dan Aziz, who's, he's not in any way out the door. You know what I mean? He's got, I'm sure, very lofty aspirations in the sport. And I think it sort of was telling when Rocky Fielding, missed weight by a pound, and from what you gather, there was never really any intention of trying to lose it, and obviously then the British and Commonwealth titles wouldn't be on the line, so sort of an indicator there as to where your heart's at. But I thought Dan Aziz was very good. He always does. Really, really fun fighter to watch. Doesn't take many backward steps and just completely worked Fielding over. And what was, I know Fielding landed a couple of shots, and you could tell Aziz was respectful of his power, but it's fairly one-way traffic, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think one thing that's interesting is that there's only actually 2 years difference in age between the two, but they're at such different stages of their careers. It's really unreal. You would think there was a big gap. First question I have, Danny, do you think this is it for Rocky Fielding? Do you think he will retire now?
I don't see where he goes, personally. I don't see, I was probably an all right payday for him. I don't see what another money generating fight would be for him at light heavyweight. Is he still with Probellum? Is that right? I don't know what opportunities they would be able to create for him. And it's not as if like he's taken a huge. I know that the Callum Smith stopped him in a round, and that was a pretty bad knockout. But the Canelo one was body shot. This was more an accumulation. He's not taking a great deal of punishment. It wouldn't be a case of, I hate to touch back to Fury Chisora, but I think we're all a bit concerned for the sort of long-term health of Chisora at this stage. Whereas I don't think it'd be a case of that or Rocky Fielding. It'd be more just, what ambition do you have? You know what I mean? There didn't seem to be a great deal based off tonight, and I'm sure he's made a lot of money in his career. Obviously, we mentioned the Canelo fight. You'd imagine he doesn't need to fight on. So I think it's personally, I would like to see him retire. He's had a very good career.
Yeah. Just kind of before the call, just took quick kind of snapshot of his career. Obviously 30 years old, 33 fights, made his pro debut 12 years ago. He's achieved a lot. He was world champion. That's fantastic for him. I hope he calls it a day now, and I imagine he will. Back to Dan Aziz. Look, he's had a fantastic year this year. I think he's been out 3 times, which is not easy to do when you're kind of a British level or more these days. Good win against Shakan Pitters in Liverpool a couple of months ago, and stoppage of Rocky Fielding tonight. One thing about Dan Aziz is 33 years old. He's only had 18 fights, but he's 33 years old. In my opinion, I would like to see him just go after the biggest fight possible. If that involves defending your British title, then fair enough. I personally think he can do more than that in that with his career. Lyndon Arthur has been mentioned tonight. We don't know if that's a big possibility or not. We'll see. Maybe Lyndon Arthur fought a couple of weeks ago on the Josh Kelly Troy Williamson undercard, so maybe that's a fight that can happen in 2023. Where would you like to see Dan Aziz go next?
I agree with the point you make in terms of he's not going to get any better. I think we're definitely seeing the best version of Dan Aziz. So if you're him and you've got aspirations of winning the world title, you want to see that as soon as possible. It's just, it looks as if the world titles at light heavyweight, there's a big queue, and I would imagine he's quite far down it. But there's still sort of, big money fights at domestic level. You touched on Lyndon Arthur. I think that's a great fight. I think it'd be a good clash of styles. Craig Richards is a few people I mentioned as well. I don't know how easy that fight would be to make with the sort of ongoing beef that seems to be getting quite serious between Matchroom and Boxer. And I'm not sure who the European champion is. European's always a decent stopgap between, moving on to that world level. It's another route you can take, but it's just unfortunate for him because you would see fighters in his sort of position. You would chat about maybe being one fight away for a world title. As I say, there's a long waiting list at light heavyweight. But I think he's definitely capable of pushing on past British level. I think he needs one more to win the Lonsdale belt outright. So he's got half an eye on, and as we said, there's sort of plenty of viable contenders for that. But as you said, I would definitely like to see him push on and just roll the dice and see how good he is, because I think he's not going to be an easy night for anyone with his style, realistically.
No, I really like watching Dan Aziz fight. It's kind of seen him fight York Hall 4 or 5 years ago, winning kind of at area level and fighting journeyman. So it's fantastic to see what he's achieved now. Also, look, the light heavyweight division is a fantastic division in this country. I think obviously Boatsy Callum Smith could happen next year. There's Anthony Yarde is fighting for a world title next month against Beterbiev. Maybe if Anthony Yarde comes up short, maybe he could fight Anthony Yarde next year. Perhaps I think that's another fight as well. final question from me, I think, Danny. If Dan Aziz Lyndon Arthur was to happen, is there someone you would favour for that one?
Probably would edge Aziz, I think. I know Lyndon Arthur looked really good in Newcastle the other week, but yeah, you think back to that second Yard fight and it wasn't great. And Aziz, whilst he definitely doesn't have the power of Yard, I think you might be able to outwork Arthur, and I wouldn't say he definitely stops him or anything like that. But I think I would give him the edge just in that work rate, and I'm not sure Arthur will be able to live with him. But he's renowned as having one of the best jabs in the country, which gives him a chance against anyone. But at this stage, based on what we've seen recently, I would favour Aziz, I think.
Okay, appreciate the honesty. I feel that's enough of kind of asking you about 50-50 fights for now, but there'll be more to come another time, I'm sure. Danny, thank you for joining me. As we said, maybe not the most memorable night in Bournemouth, but I think we had look, to be fair, we had a good main event. And yeah, excited to see what Chris Billam-Smith's going to do next year. But thank you very much for joining me.
No problem, mate. Cheers.